I'm John Kaiser. I'm at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver, May 25th, 2019. I'm speaking with Loren Komperdo, CEO of Zephyr Minerals. Loren, welcome to Vancouver.
Thank you, John.
Your project has undertaken a significant change. It was originally a gold-focused project, and now you are assessing something new and different that could be very, very exciting. But before we talk about that, can you describe what it is that you were chasing in terms of the gold potential, what your limitations have been, what sort of the exit strategy there was for the gold resource that you were developing?
Sure, absolutely. So we have 130,000 ounce 43101 compliant resource, running about 10 to 12 grams per ton, and nice thicknesses, 4 to 5 meters, mechanized mining thicknesses. One of the tough parts with our project is, the mountain climbs like this, and our ore dips into the mountain at 70 degrees. So right now, the holes, if we wanted to get any deeper, we're drilling 1,500 foot holes. So with that in mind, we've decided to expand to the east. We did some geophysics out there. We got a good anomaly. We also did some geochemistry. We've got a geochemical anomaly, so we've got room to move in that area. And that is shallow drilling, so we'll be able to drill in there at a shallower depth and hopefully find additional ore and gold that is found at a lower cost because of the drilling. We also went into a new area called Green Mountain, which is about 8 kilometers away. And the reason we went into that area is at Dawson, we've got the gold dipping at 70. And 10 meters above that, we've got a massive sulfide copper zone. And so we know that the system at Green Mountain is exactly the same as the system at Dawson. So we did sampling on surface there, and we found one sample that was running 13.6 grams gold with no sulfides. We know at Dawson there's no sulfides in the gold. So we thought we had an opportunity at Green Mountain. We've got the copper zone, which is looked at. No one ever explored that 10 meters below in the footwall rocks for the high-grade gold. So that's the reason we picked up that area.
So what you're telling me is the previous operators of a copper mine, which obviously the copper zone was bigger there in the Green Mountain area than in the Dawson segment where the focus has been on gold. Those previous operators never bothered to push holes past the copper horizons and determine whether or not there's anything beyond that to intersect this gold horizon?
That is basically correct. The last drilling that was done in there was in the early 80s by Phelps Dodge, and they only sampled the massive sulfides because they're looking for a massive sulfide copper deposit.
Now, drilling, the topography has been an issue for you to build the gold resource because it's a fairly steeply dipping structure that hosts these lenses. The El Plomo segment, you're looking for a target as deep as 1,000 meters, lead, zinc, silver type, yes, Broken Hill type target. Are you going to be able to drill holes targeting a deposit that deep in the El Plomo area?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right now, most of your Broken Hill type deposits are in Australia. And this type of prospect is not available in Australia anymore. In Australia, in fact, what they're doing is they're looking for targets below what you can see geophysically. So they're actually shooting seismic and drilling holes up to 4,000 feet plus, up to 1,200 meters, looking for structure. And that's also, they don't have any geology, they don't have any rocks, they don't have any showings, it's just looking for structure because these deposits are so rich that you could afford to be down 1,200 meters and explore from surface at that depth, and if you hit one, you're still going to make money with it.
So the zones that were explored in the 80s, they were not very thick. As I understand it, the original stratigraphy is tilted on its side, and what you believe you have is maybe the edges of a former ZX system that got folded and squeezed to form the Broken Hill version of it. What was the deepest drilling done in this area, and why did they stop where they did?
Sure. So there was 4 drills drilled in this area. In 2 and 79 and 2 and 81, all the holes, the deepest holes were 60 to 70 meters, so very shallow. They were looking to just test the horizon below the oxide zone, which they were able to do. All the zones hit high-grade mineralization. But what happened is in 81, when they drilled, and they got some pretty good grades, you know, up to 3% of I think 10% plus zinc, and some quite high silver values in the galena. But what happened at that same time is they also drilled some holes in the Dawson area, and they got a discovery hole of the gold zone over there. And the discovery hole was 10 meters of over 10 grams gold in one big solid piece. So all of a sudden, that was the main target because it was much richer than anything they'd found in the lead zinc zone. So that the lead zinc zone was kind of left as a you know, really an orphan, because it's quite rugged in there and it's helicopter drilling, and it was thin. So they didn't realize the target was a Broken Hill type target at the time.
In 1988, JazzCan ended up with this project, and a certain mercenary geologist was hired to map this whole El Plomo segment. What was the impetus for taking a fresh look at the lead zinc potential then, and why was it not followed up by the junior rather than the big major?
Well, at the time, they had the same problem in that, I wouldn't call it a problem, but they were actually getting some extremely good intercepts of gold at the Dawson area. But at the same time, they were mapping the El Plomo area to see if they could get any thicker zones, and just to see, also they were looking out there to see if there's any more gold potential, because they had the gold potential at Dawson at the same time. So it was a combination to see if it could thicken up, and also if they could find any gold in that area. And they did not, I shouldn't say, there is some gold in the lead zones, but only a gram or two. And so with that in mind, they did detailed mapping over the entire 3.3 kilometers, but it never thickened up and they didn't get any gold in there, and so it was actually a geological exercise to get detailed mapping. What is interesting though in that area is it's not just a little zone here, a little zone there. That mineralized trend runs for the full 3.3 kilometers, and so, you know, we're pretty confident there's something fairly significant there, because otherwise you get a pinch and swell, you get a little bit of lead, you know, a little bit of showing here, you know, 100 meters away you get another little showing. This is consistent, and it's quite thick over the entire 3.3 kilometers.
Now, if the geophysics does not show you a significant magnetic anomaly indicating that the pyrrhotite that's normally associated with a Broken Hill type system is there, do you just walk away from that and go back to the gold potential, or do you drill some scout holes just to make sure that the geophysics is reliable?
Well, I think we're going to get some type of target. Obviously, you know, there is mineralization there already. I guess the question would then be, if you got a weak target, what do you do? Well, we would drill the weak target. And at that point, we could then use that hole to look deeper down. We could use the max min or some other geochemical or geophysical survey that you use that hole to then look below that hole. So there's some opportunities there. And with regards to the gold at Green Mountain, for example, we are still going to keep exploring that. We need to go in there and map that area in detail. So we're not just going to be doing El Plomo, we're going to also be looking at the gold at the same time. And we'll continue to look at that gold as we also work at El Plomo.
In a past conversation, I've asked about how would this be mined? I mean, obviously it would be some sort of a vertical plunging body that's not really accessible to open pit mining. And you mentioned that to the north is an excellent area to drive a decline to access the ore, to underground mine it. And obviously you would have your processing facility there. Is that area the kind of area that would allow a mining facility with a tailings dump to be developed?
Oh, I think so. That area, there's some private ground and some BLM ground, so that would be possible. It's an interesting area because where the showing is on El Plomo, it's extremely rugged. You know, you've got, you know, very steep 45-degree type hills, you know, 1,000 feet high, you know, 300 meters high, and you just move a half mile north and you're bald prairie, just flat as a board. And those are the sedimentary areas compared to the Precambrian area. So that area is totally possible. A good example of what was done is if we look at the Cannington deposit in Australia, the average depth of that deposit is 2,000 feet, or about 1,400 meters, 1,300 meters. to access that deposit, they drove a decline down 3.8 miles or about 6 kilometers, 10 degrees, right down into the deposit. So if you look at where we are, if you're down 500 feet, you're looking at a 5,000 foot decline. So you could basically put it on some property. Off to the east, we already own about 144 acres of land, which we control the surface on already. That's private land. And we could also look to the north. And there's additional areas to look at too, depending on the depth of the deposit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The gonite, that was an intriguing twist that this Dr. Paul Spry, a specialist in Broken Hill type deposits, had built a database of gonite showings in Colorado, which was at one point attached to Australia, where the Broken Hill deposit is now located, but now it's on the other side of the planet. And he had a student do a master's thesis on the Green Mountain area where the gonite was of the kind that is associated with the Broken Hill deposits and used as a pathfinder to home in on the Cannington deposit, which is also far away from, it's in Queensland, not New South Wales. Has any sampling been done in the El Plomo area where you have these lead zinc horizons and established? Is the gonite even more intense in that area, closer to the source? Because as I understand, that area has been downdropped, or the other two sides uplifted, and whatever there might have been laterally has long since eroded and disappeared. But here you would have a preserved system. Is gonite also in evidence within this El Plomo segment?
We have given samples to Dr. Spry, and he has another student doing a master's thesis on El Plomo and Dawson. So we've got some preliminary results from Dawson. We've got gonite there, and it's very preliminary. I got a one-page from him, and really all he said was the gonite looks very interesting. So it's very early days yet. We've got another year before we start to actually get hard data out of that. But we will be looking at that, and we will get that data from him as the master's thesis progresses.
So you'll have probably made or broken this story before you get the geochemical data.
Perhaps.
Assuming you get the financing, what's the timeline for getting the geophysics done? Also permitting drill holes, is that going to be a headache? And then drilling it, if everything, if you got all the money in the next few weeks, when can we expect these stages to unfold?
We are subject to availability, and things are pretty slow these days, so we expect to be able to get an airborne geophysical crew on site in July. And weather permitting, we probably got a 10-day window, maybe 2 week maximum of flying, processing another 2-3 weeks. So we expect to have our data from the geophysics completed by August. We currently are actually have an application in right now for a conditional use permit, which is what you need for drilling in Colorado. We expect that to have that in hand by late August. And because we're also on BLM land, we also have to get a permit from them. So that is all ongoing now. If everything works out well, we should be permitted to drill holes in August. We can only drill in this area until the end of October. There's some bighorn sheep in the area, and so there's a window of drilling that you could work on here. So if something is very deep, we probably won't drill it this fall. We'll wait till next year just to make sure we're in the window. But if we got something shallower than 300 meters, for example, we'll basically get a rig in there and drill that immediately.
And one last question. You did a PEA a few years ago for a small-scale standalone mine with the 133,000 ounces that you have, but you've also talked about the possibility of direct shipping ore to Newmont's Cripple Creek facility.
Correct.
What do they need for you to outline before they become interested in accommodating such an arrangement?
They would be interested in talking to us once we hit the hurdle mark of 500,000 ounces.
And of that sort of 10 gram per ton range.
Yeah, that exactly. They want that. The material going through their they built a brand new mill. Up to now, Cripple Creek has been a heap leach operation. They've basically just about run out of all their oxide ore. So now they're going into the sulfide zone. So they've just a couple of years ago built a brand new 5,700 ton a day mill. And that mill is running 3.5 gram material through it. So they're very keen on getting this 10-gram material that allow them to mix and match and blend and basically just get a higher concentrate going through their mill. And obviously, it would be more economical to do that. But being a large company, their hurdle mark is half million ounces to be able to start to look at us.
So what investors get with Zephyr Minerals is a moonshot with the Broken Hill type of discovery that could be extremely valuable. You'll be able to assess that over the next year, and if that does not work out, you go back to the bread and butter of stitching together these near surface zones. Hopefully the Green Mountain delivers additional ones, and either hope to get critical mass yourself or what Newmont needs to have this developed and processed at its facility.
That is exactly correct. That's exactly correct.
I've been speaking with Loren Komperdo, CEO of Zephyr Minerals. Thank you, Loren.
Thank you, John.